Welcome, everybody, back to There Will Be Bets. I am your host, Cole Oxane. As always, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jake LaSalle and Drew LaSalle, and we're here for another week in March. We're one step closer to the NCAA tournament. Conference tournaments are underway. I think as we started recording, I think the first ticket was just punched. I think Northern Iowa just won the Missouri Valley tournament against UIC, who unfortunately some of us on this podcast were rooting for UIC in that game. So, hey, you know what? We can only go up from here. But things are getting exciting. The NBA's got a little bit going on. It is a weird month for the NBA. We'll touch on it some, but right now is just kind of a tough place, and college basketball is really center stage for the next month or so. We'll touch on both of those. And good news, guys, the long national nightmare is over. Football's back. There was some big NFL news that we will touch on at the end of the show with Max Crosby. So, hey, we went like 3 weeks without football. We'll touch on it at the end of the show. But we're going to hop right in here first. Like I said, college basketball, NBA, all of that stuff first. And we're going to lead off the show with a rant as usual. I've got one, and this is a very, very niche problem. And I understand that this is a champagne problem. It's a first world problem. But nonetheless, I'm here to complain about it. Small college conferences have no business having their own streaming service. Have you guys heard of NEC Front Row? No, of course you haven't. Only sickos have heard of it. NEC Front Row is the NEC Conference, the Northeastern Conference's own streaming service. I'm trying to watch Mercyhurst play in the semifinals of the NEC tournament because, of course, we have a future on them, and I can't find it anywhere. They're not the only conference. I think the Summit League has its own thing. I think the Big Sky has one. I know the Mountain West has one. Who are these conferences to not just partner with ESPN Plus like everybody else? ESPN has forced us to buy their stupid subscription. At the very least, can I have everything on there? Don't get me started about Flow Sports. That's the worst of them all. I don't even know who's on Flow Sports, but somehow they have stuff too. It's ridiculous. Us sickos need to be able to just go to one spot and find everything we want. Like, it's just unacceptable at this point where we have so much access to this, and yet I have to have an NEC Front Row account to watch the Mercyhurst basketball game. It's stupid. It's stupid. ESPN, you already own everything else. Just please buy up all the rights to this so I can pay you one fat bill and I can watch every damn game. Just please. That's how I want to start today. That is my rant because, again, it's frustrating as somebody who wants to sickeningly watch every game.
The NEC having their own, I mean, that's just like so college basketball though. I want to know, I gotta see the streaming numbers that they're doing year over year on that puppy, because it's got to be no more than 1,000 people that tune in on any given week.
Has to be parents, right? Like, that's it.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Mercyhurst is our. We'll go into the NEC and our where we're at with that, but yeah, it's like first team to 60 is winning any of these games, and oftentimes they don't even get to that.
It's ridiculous. And yeah, like I said, they're not the only one. I know we're bashing the NEC right now. They're not the only one. There's too many of these conferences. It's not as big of a problem in football, but it's a big problem in basketball because there's just so many more teams. And again, these conferences that only exist for basketball. All right, that's enough on that. I don't need to go in any longer. That's just my sicko rant of the week. Again, a champagne problem for those of us living in the first world, where my biggest problem is how do I watch NEC basketball? All right, well, before we hop into the heart of the college basketball discussion, if you are watching this video and you are enjoying, do hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button as well. Hit the bell so you never miss an upload from us. We're going to be doing a lot of heavy coverage of the NCAA tournament here over the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then right around after that is the NBA playoffs, and we'll be heavy into that as well. So you're going to want to stay tuned for us all the way through the rest of basketball season. So again, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell as well. Never miss an upload from us throughout the rest of the basketball season. All right, so actually talking real college basketball now that we've got my rant out of the way. Top storyline I want to go with is one that I think might be a little overplayed at this point, but is still worth noting because it's an undefeated team. And it's honestly undefeated team, impressive at no matter what level you play at. But Miami of Ohio does it again. They survive a wild game in the MAC against Ohio to end the regular season play. I think it was like 110 to 108, an NBA score going on in Ohio, and this team is just on a knife's edge every game they play, somehow finding ways to win miraculously every time. And I think at this point you have to say they're in the tournament. I know there's this whole debate about it, should they be in, should they not be, and I think that's all just overplayed kind of for attention, so of course we're going to join into that discussion too, because why not? But I think that they're firmly in now, even if they lose, no matter what round of the MAC tournament. I know you guys have some feelings on, should we not be favoring these big, the Auburns of the world, the 500 Power 4 teams. Do we think Miami of Ohio's in? Should we even be wasting time on this? Or is there a real world where they do get left out if they lose in the MAC tournament at all. What do we think?
I know we have to talk about it, but I'm tired of hearing and reading about it. Certainly, they're in the tournament. This is a ridiculous topic. This was a topic maybe 3 weeks ago when it was still a debate if they dropped a regular season game and lost in like early in the MAC tournament or in the final, like maybe they get left out with 2 losses. No, they're absolutely in. This is all seeding now for them. If they can take care of business and beat likely Kent State in the final, then they're absolutely in. Miami of Ohio is an incredible story, and we've seen mid-majors like this that have run the table. It's been a really long time. I think 04 St. Joe's maybe was the last one that we saw that did this, and yeah, they're going to get a lot of viewership come tournament time. Hopefully get a good matchup in round 1 and show the mid-majors that they're just as viable as any of these middling big conference teams that are going to squeak in. But I might be on one of those middling teams come March Madness time, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's always tough. The MAC, it's tough to back them come conference time as much as you want to. Their style of play just tends not to translate because they're so high pace, and it's just, it's hard to play high pace against guys who are bigger, stronger, faster than you. But I agree. They're in the tournament. Again, it's not a discussion. It's just a matter of, I will be interested to see if they do lose, because then my dream will come true of a 2-bid MAC. But what do they do and where do they get put if they do lose? Because obviously if they get the automatic qualifier for winning the conference tournament, then you're right, they'll be undefeated. They'll have to be a top 8 seed. Probably even a 7, if I had to guess. I think is very much in the possibility based on all these other bubble teams just pissing down their pants every chance they get to try and secure themselves in the tournament. So I think that'll happen. Jake, do you have any thoughts on the whole underdog angle to this, and like, should we as a country be rooting for them to have as high a seed as possible strictly to help us with the idea of a Cinderella that we've been losing lately?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting story. Like, obviously going undefeated is just crazy in any like capacity in college basketball nowadays, and like especially in all the like close games they had. That game yesterday, right? Yeah, or 2 days ago, I don't know, but was absolutely insane. Like 110 to 108 in overtime, like surviving. Unbelievable game. I think it'd be a cool story. Like you said, it's just hard. Like, if I don't know if their game translates to beating one of these Power 5 teams, but it'll be an interesting game either way when they actually get into the tournament. But with regard to like should they be in no matter what, yeah, I think it's a very tired take at this point. For people saying they shouldn't be in if they lose a game. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, but it's like, what would you rather see? The 8th best SEC team make the tournament, or a team that just has never been in the tournament that is having an amazing season?
You want to talk about, like I said, Auburn is the team that comes to my mind because I know they've been a little bit in the news with the whole Bruce Pearl thing. But that team stinks. There's no business putting a team. They can't win the title. They likely would win maybe one game depending on who they play if they get a right matchup. They're probably a play-in team, right? I know we've seen teams come from the play-in before and make runs in the tournament, so that would be the counter argument. But again, and especially in a weak SEC this year, if you can't find a way to be one of the top 7 or 8 teams in the SEC, then stop. I know mid-majors play a different level. This is the same sport. Give these teams and give them their due, give them their credit for playing well all year. The regular season still has to matter. This isn't college football where there's only 12 spots. There's 68 spots. If you're telling me that you're the 69th best team and you're arguing over whether or not you're 68th, then go home. Take your ball and go home. That's my opinion on the whole thing. I need them to stop. I'm tired of seeing it. And it's even worse because of the whole Bruce Pearl and his son element. At least he finally admitted publicly that he's obviously just super biased because it's his son and his former team that he helped, pass the job down to. So at least that happened, thankfully. We're not just totally masquerading like there was nothing going on there. But yeah, I think that's about it. Unless you guys have anything else on this topic, I think that's about it. I don't think we should waste any more time on it. Miami of Ohio is in. We're rooting for them to be as high of a seed as possible. I want them to win the MAC. Although, again, my dream of a 2-bid MAC could come true, so I might be happy even if they don't. But anything else on this one, or do we just want to move on and not give this any more daylight? All right. So we'll jump into the big conference tournaments. Yeah, we'll jump into the big conference tournaments then. Basically, my question here, guys, is I don't want to go into necessarily breaking down every single possible matchup, every single seed. Of the five, now again, you could debate on if the Big East is the fifth conference in basketball right now. They have not been a great conference this year, but they probably are still your fifth power conference when you're talking basketball. So of the five big conferences, your top seeds, or at least your betting favorites, I should say, St. John's ended up being the one seed in the Big East. But nonetheless, is St. John's and UConn in the Big East. You have Arizona in the Big 12. You have Florida in the SEC, Michigan in the Big 10, Duke in the ACC. So those are your five big juggernauts. All are dominating their conference all year. Some of the best teams in the country, as we've talked about. Do we see any value in fading any of these teams in their conference tournaments? Or is this going to be a year a lot like last year where the top seeds roll through their conference tournament, win it anyway, and just prove yet again that they're ahead of everybody? I think that's probably the case. I think maybe I could find one or two spots, but is there any conference in particular where you're like, this is the opportunity, let's take a shot on fading this team? You don't, maybe you have an idea of who you'd want to fade them with, but are there any of these teams you want to fade right now, or is it just such a different league?
I mean, I don't see another answer other than UConn. I know Jake will probably toss Michigan into the ring for this, but it certainly isn't Arizona, certainly isn't Duke. There's just not enough of a differentiation in talent with any other Big 12 teams that I'm seeing right now, and any other ACC teams, certainly. Duke just continues to roll teams. The one time I bet them, obviously they don't cover up 25 with 6 to play, but I probably could have included that in the rant section. But UConn, this team is vulnerable as shit. We've been talking about this for weeks. They drop an ugly game at Marquette yesterday. Danny Hurley losing his marbles on the sideline. Looked like he could argue headbutted a ref in response to a late game call there. Just an absolute child on the sidelines last night. But this team is super vulnerable. I think the Big East is wide open in terms of who could win it. Will it probably end up being St. John's or UConn? Maybe, but I just don't think there's a ton of separation in an otherwise really mediocre conference.
Actually, you're going to be surprised on my take. I was actually going to say Arizona.
Well,
Because I just think there's a lot of teams that have a chance to beat them. So it's not like some of these other conferences is like they're by far the best team and there might be one other team. So like it's just one game in the title game. Arizona could play 2 or 3 games that like is a good team and they could drop it. They are obviously the clear favorite, but like I could see a world in which like because they have a couple tough games that they could drop one and there could be some value on like a Texas Tech or a Houston or something like that. BYU maybe, I don't know.
So when it comes to the Big 12 in particular, I think Jake is kind of right, but I also feel like it's a double-edged sword. Is Texas Tech is the 4 seed in the Big 12. We've talked about it. They're big game hunters. This team has been able to beat Arizona once in McHale already. That being said, Arizona's path to getting there is you have to beat the winner of UCF and most likely Cincinnati, who they will roll either of those teams. So neither of those teams match up particularly well with Arizona. That being said, Texas Tech has to play the winner of Iowa State and most likely Arizona State or Baylor. I actually don't know who's coming out of that game. I don't think it really matters. I think Iowa State takes care of business against either of them. So you're going to have a very tough matchup. And Iowa State is a team playing for something. This team is teetering on the 2-3 line right now. So that's going to be a hard-fought game between them and Texas Tech. Texas Tech, the one thing we've said the whole time is that the depth could now be a problem without JT Top, and having to play games in consecutive days could get really hairy for them. So yes, they do play Arizona if they are able to take care of Iowa State, but it could be after a shorter rest and all that stuff, and maybe it ends up being Iowa State who will have had to have played 2 games already leading into Arizona, and we saw how Iowa State played playing against Arizona on a day's rest going to Tucson. So it looks like it's going to be a very favorable situation for Arizona. And then obviously the Houston matchup, they're just in the much tougher side of the Big 12 bracket because you have BYU playing West Virginia if they're able to take care of Kansas State. I think both of those teams are formidable and could give Houston some problems. Then you have Kansas down there too. TCU's on that side of the bracket. So Houston has the much tougher side. So I think, yes, the Big 12 makes sense from what Jake is saying. My answer is I don't really know who else is winning the Big 12, so it just leaves me to still say that Arizona is going to be the value pick. Arizona will be a 6-point favorite on a neutral floor against everybody in that conference probably. So it's hard for me to say to fade them, even though Jake is right about it being the most deep conference as far as competition, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get that point. Absolutely. I think it's just, yeah, like you said, they're going to be 6+ favorites over Iowa State or Texas Tech. I do think that that Texas Tech Iowa State matchup is going to be a really interesting one. I just don't love, like, Iowa State away from Ames is a different basketball team. Like, Momcilovic has been an unbelievable godlike player in Ames, different guy on the road. That team is really good, but I think I lean Texas Tech in that game, and then obviously Texas Tech beats Arizona in Tucson this year. Maybe they get some revenge back for that one. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I just don't think I'm scared of Arizona losing before that semifinal game, unlike Houston, who could potentially get BYU in the quarters, like you're saying, like multiple tough games leading into a final against Arizona. Like that's probably not the best setup. And Texas Tech, I guess, doesn't have to play the first round game, but yeah, they're really only playing 6 guys at this point, and that doesn't really bode well for a conference tournament setting.
I think that makes sense. The other conferences, so just to throw my take in on those, I think there's no chance Duke isn't in the ACC championship, and even then, I'd be shocked if they lost that game. There's just no one in the ACC that's close. We saw it yesterday. North Carolina, Caleb Wilson done for the year. That would be the one team you'd have thought could have had a chance if healthy. Virginia couldn't do it. I don't think Louisville can do it. There's no chance Duke's not in the ACC championship. And you want to know about teams that'll be a 10-point favorite on a neutral floor against everybody they're playing? Is going to be close. Maybe against Louisville and Virginia, they would be less than a 10-point favorite on a neutral, but I don't know. It's pretty crazy. So I think Duke, pretty much hands down, they're going to be a heavy, chalky favorite, justifiably. I think the Big Ten is where it gets a little interesting. The reason I say that is because of, it's a hard tournament to win as the 1 seed, because you don't get there's the double bye thing, but you still have to win. I think it's 3, if not 4 games. I think it's 3 games as a top 4 seed in that tournament, but 3 games in 3 days is really tough. And it is another conference where the middle of the conference has the ability to play up to competition. We saw it Iowa, perfect example. And Iowa was at home, and Iowa's been really good at home. But Iowa was able to take Michigan to the brink. And Iowa is, I think right now, 7th or 8th place in the Big Ten. So the type of team that could come out, get hot for a couple days, could give a team like Michigan some trouble. I think that Nebraska has the build of a team that could cause some problems for anyone in the tournament. We've seen them play Michigan tight previously. I know UCLA has been a laughingstock, but Mick Cronin always gets his dudes up for tournaments. Now, again, it's not on the West Coast, so maybe that's a whole different debacle. Even Purdue, who we've laughed out of the room this year. Again, you got a guy like Braden Smith in a tournament setting. You just never know. So I think the Big Ten is where it would go. Now, again, if you're asking me who I should take, I think some of those names I just threw out would be good, like maybe underdog matchups in a single game. I think Illinois, if they don't have to play Michigan, can win that tournament. I think if somebody can take Michigan out, Illinois can win that tournament the way they play. That's probably where I would look, getting a little bit of a plus number because of how heavy of a favorite Michigan will be. That's just my take on the one conference where I do think there's value. But yeah, at the end of the day, it probably will still be Michigan's tournament to win. But that's at least where I think there's some teams I'm comfortable backing at a plus number. I don't know if you guys feel the same or differently. I know Jake's not a big fan of Michigan, but in this type of setting, they are just a tough team to beat.
Yeah, that was the other team I was thinking was Nebraska. Was like one of the teams that I kind of could see a world which they, upset Michigan and win. There are also a couple of other teams that have a chance, but that would be the one team I would look at if I was betting against Michigan.
Don't plan on it being Michigan State.
God, no. I don't mind the Illinois look just because I think they're going to get the 3 seed and avoid Michigan until the final. Is that right?
Maybe Nebraska still plays today, so I don't know if that could potentially, I don't know what the tiebreakers are. I know they have a same record. Yeah, so I have it up in front of me now. They have the same conference record. It's possible that Nebraska could pass them by winning today. I don't 100% know. If that's the case, then it scares me a lot more for Illinois, because I would much rather have Nebraska as the 4 playing Michigan, Illinois on the other side if I wanted that.
Got it. Okay.
That being said, there's one other team that has beat Michigan this year who could potentially be sitting in the 5 spot right now, it looks like, is Wisconsin. Another team who, if you could give me Michigan has to play the winner of Wisconsin, or it has to play Nebraska, or some has to play both of them. Now all of a sudden you got a couple of teams who stylistically match up well with Michigan. Maybe they trip them up. And then now you have that runway on the other side where you get Illinois, who if Illinois manages to hold on to that 3 seed, they would likely be squared up for a semifinal with Michigan State. Or again, Tom Izzo never performs well in the Big Ten tournament. It's just not the thing he likes to do. So I could see a world where Michigan State's not even there. Illinois gets a more favorable matchup against a Purdue or somebody like that who they've been able to handle this year. That's kind of my thinking on it, but I agree with what Drew is saying. It kind of depends on how this shakes out with the seeding, because if Illinois is on Michigan's side, we saw it happen already. They just can't take care of Michigan. That's just not a good matchup for them. All right, so to wrap up the college basketball discussion for today, again, it's going to be a little shorter. It's kind of the weird in-between week. We'll be heavy into the tournament next week. But the last thing I want to bring up is somehow this is a heavy NEC podcast today. It's kind of funny how things work out sometimes. But the NCAA needs to figure out this rule where you're not allowed to qualify for postseason play right after moving up to Division I. It's crazy. It has hurt teams in the past. Most famously, Merrimack won the MAC, and then Fairleigh Dickinson ended up going to the tournament despite losing their conference, beat Purdue. So crazy scenario. That's the most famous example of this. This year in the NEC, we could potentially see the same type of situation. Mercyhurst has just moved up from Division I recently. They are ineligible for postseason play. They are playing LIU. LIU has already punched their ticket to the tournament because of this situation. They do not have to win the conference championship game to make it to the tournament. This is a dumb rule. Why on earth, if you're good enough to win your conference right after moving up, do you have to sit out and wait? I don't understand the rule. I assume it's a money thing. It's to prevent teams from trying to go up and back down. Someone smarter than me could probably explain to me where the rule came from. That doesn't matter. It's a dumb rule. I think this is so stupid. I hope it actually ends up playing in our favor, because I know collectively on this podcast we have futures on Mercyhurst to win the NEC. Now all of a sudden they're playing a game where this is their last game of the season. This is literally their championship. They cannot do anything more than win their conference this year against a team who, yes, LIU obviously would like to win their conference championship because that means a lot to these small schools. They already have the ticket punched. So, there's a very big dichotomy in the motivation here, but this is just stupid. Why is this a thing? Why on earth are you as Mercyhurst going into this game knowing you have no chance to go to the big dance? That is literally the entire thing with small conferences. Is that your one path to getting to the tournament, and yet because you moved up a year or two ago, you can't do it. It's so dumb to me. It's so dumb.
Yeah, I don't understand what is the NCAA benefit? Like, how are they benefiting from having these situations play out? Like, is it just purely a barrier to entry, like getting into Division I, that you then have to wait for your eligibility for the postseason to set up? Like, I don't get that at all. You see it play out too. I can't remember if it's not a thing anymore in college football, but I want to say James Madison won the Sun Belt the first year they were there with Signetti and weren't eligible to compete in the conference championship game, if I'm not mistaken. But I've never understood this like transition period of not being eligible for postseason play. It's very bizarre to me.
It was Signetti's first year. I think they ended up getting to go to a bowl game though, because there weren't enough teams. But I think you're right. It was something like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's also just strange in general because, like, one, it's like the conference, is who the conference has to accept the new team, but then you can't go to the main tournament, but like they still, like, the conference, accepts the team. They're allowed to play in the conference tournament. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me. If you're going to put restrictions on it, like why would you not restrict them playing in the conference tournament and just say like, oh, you have to just play a D1 schedule, but you can't play in any of the tournaments if that's the restriction you're making. But like having them play, like you said, and now they have a chance to win and then they can't get in is just strange. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and like I said, it's got to be a money thing, because I would assume if you're the conferences, it's got to be an NCAA thing, not the conferences themselves. Because I assume if you're the conference, right, you make money by how your teams perform in the tournament. If you get wins in the tournament, your conference gets money. For these small conferences, upset wins in the tournament, or if they get to play a play-in game and they win a play-in game, that's a lot of money for the conference. So you, as the conference, would want the team who's the hottest team coming out of your conference to compete, right? Like if Mercyhurst is able to beat LIU and is a hot team right now, the NEC would want them in the tournament, I think. So I think it comes from the top level NCAA, again, probably an old rule of they don't want teams to jump up to D1, try to win, and then jump back down. Or there's probably something going on there, but it's just such a dumb rule. And honestly, it really sucks too because this Mercyhurst team is fun. They're a fun team, and we've seen this happen again and again with some fun teams who, in all the different sports, that Signetti JMU team was a fun team. And there's a whole different debacle going on with Utah Valley in the WAC right now, but another administrative thing that's basically keeping a good team out of tournament play. This is not good for the sport. In a world where people are complaining about the product being varied by things like NIL and the transfer portal, all of these other archaic, dumb rules that are keeping good teams from being able to play in the postseason, it's just stupid. And again, it's giving me shades of just the old school can't figure out how to bring it to the new age. And it's just another example of the NCAA just consistently cannot adapt, I think, is the overall takeaway I have from this. Well, that's enough NEC talk for a year, to be honest with you, but for this podcast, definitely. So we're going to jump into the NBA. Now, again, March is a weird time for the NBA. There's a lot of guys that take time off. A lot of teams are really fully in tanking mode. So you get these weird situations where you're starting to see the clearer picture, but at the same point, on a night-to-night basis, it's hard to really predict what's going to happen. I think we're seeing that play out with a couple of teams in particular in the West. So the West is obviously OKC's up at the top. The Spurs are a rung below them, but still have a little bit of separation as far as games. But then basically the 3 through 6, maybe 7 seeds are all very tightly matched right now. And we are seeing the Lakers and even the Nuggets are two teams who are sliding fast. I think the Lakers might be destined for the play-in. I think the Nuggets are every day and every week showing they're probably not a true title contender this year, despite having the best player in the world. And the West is just a chaos pit right now. I don't know what the hell is going on past the 2 seed. Can you guys make any sense of it at all, of what's going on here, other than the fact that, like I said, I think the Lakers are just a clown show?
Yeah, the Lakers have definitely, the past couple of games, just been, I don't know what's going on the court. They're dropping very bad games. Same with the Nuggets. The Nuggets have dropped a lot of games to some not that great teams and have just, like you said, they've both just been slipping. I think it just solidifies, like you said, that there's 2 teams that are really insane in the West, and then there's just a bunch of teams that are like, can be good on any given night, but can be really bad on any given night. That's just what the West is right now.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that it's the 2 teams and the Pistons that have a chance to win the title, and Jake will make his case for the Celtics obviously as well, especially with you know who back in the mix. We'll talk about that in a second, but yeah, I think, I don't know if I'd go as far as say the Lakers are going to be in the play-in with at least still a 2-game cushion on the Suns, but I'd have to look at who they play the rest of the way. But anytime they play up in class with the Nuggets, the Spurs, the Thunder, like, yeah, they're not beating those teams. But I think if they hold their current position and we get a Rockets-Lakers matchup, I think that's really anybody's series. I don't think either of those teams matches up terribly, like so much better than the other, because I don't think the Rockets can really hurt the Lakers down low, maybe the same way that the Spurs and the Thunder can. But I think like the lingering team that I shouldn't be buying into, but they've been playing better ball the last couple weeks, is the T-Wolves. I'm not an Anthony Edwards guy from a personality perspective, but the dude's all obviously nasty, and they've been cruising the last few weeks. So something I'm keeping an eye on. I think they have a chance to kind of take over even the 3 seed from the Rockets and maybe get it so that they're not having to play OKC in that second round.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is if they can avoid OKC and land in that second round. The Spurs are a young team. I think the T-Wolves could be poised for another Western Conference final run, even though I think they're a flawed team and might not even be as good as the T-Wolves have been the last couple of years.
Both them and the Rockets have been playing really well down the stretch. Like you said, they have they have a couple of, both of them have players that are like top level players and can take over games. So they definitely, whoever gets that 3 seed could pose a interesting game against the Spurs or interesting series against the Spurs, and then whoever gets the 4, the Thunder might actually have a little bit of a struggle, depending on, obviously they'd have to get through the Nuggets too, but it'll be interesting.
I think the other takeaway from me in the West, and this is funny because I know it's the NBA, defense is actually proving to be a huge factor in the West this year. If you look at all the teams that are trending up, it is the teams that play good defense. The Timberwolves play good defense, at least when they want to. I know against the NBA, there are just some nights guys don't play defense. That is just the truth. But when they want to, and they want to show up and they want to play good defense, they can. Obviously, we know the Thunder, statistically, over the last couple of seasons, have been a historic defense. We know that. San Antonio, when they're playing well, and Wemby is in the paint, and he is altering shots, they are a great defense. The Rockets can be a good defense. Durant's really the only guy on that roster who's not an elite defender that plays a lot of heavy minutes for them. And those are all the teams trending up. Meanwhile, who are the teams trending down? It's the Lakers, who play zero defense. I have never seen a team play as little defense as the Los Angeles Lakers do. It's crazy. Luka Doncic has never been a good defender. LeBron is too old to play any defense. Austin Reeves, Jake, I know you were hitting him on some steals overs the other day, but let's be honest, Austin Reeves is a traffic cone. DeAndre Ayton is lazy. Like, that team does not defend at all. And then the Nuggets have not been a great defensive team either. It's nothing new for the Nuggets. They've always been a high-scoring, high-paced team. Jokic has never been a top-tier defender. Jamal Murray's never been a top-tier defender. But it's starting to really show itself that these teams that cannot play defense, and it's what makes it impossible to trust either of those teams in the playoffs in the 7-game series, is you have to be able to play some defense in some games. Yes, Doncic, and yes, Jokic, guys like that can go off and win you games in the series, but it's very, very hard to beat these other teams that can just show up and actually hold you in a playoff atmosphere where everyone tries to 100 points in a game. It's just, that's what I'm realizing with the West, is that you're going to want to back the teams who can actually play a little bit of defense, and it's not the Lakers and it's not the Nuggets right now.
And that's why you've kind of been seeing the Suns like start to like rise up a little bit, because they actually play some defense, and like now they're 2 games away from the Lakers from switching from the play-in or not. Yeah, you're starting to see them. And it's like you said, it's just because the Lakers have not been playing defense, and that, you know, you'll drop games like that.
Tell you for one thing, Cole confirmed not a Laker guy.
I do not believe in this Lakers team at all. I don't. I think that until LeBron leaves, they cannot build the roster the way it needs to be built to succeed. That you have to build the roster that the Mavs had, that they went to the finals with. That you have to build that roster to work with Luka, and that's not what this roster is.
A traffic
That's why
cone
I don't believe.
Is a crazy
Traffic code. That's a little bit too far on my man Reeves. He is certainly not the worst defender on that team.
No, he's not. But, you know, that's a very low bar.
Yeah, he cashes steals.
True.
All right, well, do you guys want to talk a little bit of Eastern Conference now that we kind of dug into the West a little bit? I know we've talked the Eastern Conference a little more recently, so we're going to talk about the one big storyline this week, which is Jayson Tatum's back. Not only is Jayson Tatum back, apparently this dude in 9 months fully recovered from an Achilles tear is totally fine, no minutes restriction, which is nuts. He came back, took the world by storm. Everybody was talking, is he going to be on a minutes restriction? Is it going to be ease him in? Will he be coming off the bench? Joe Mazzulla, and Jayson Tatum too, said, nah, you know what, I'm just back. We're going to play full minutes. We don't care what happens. And he put up a Jayson Tatum stat line right away. He struggled a little bit early, missed a few early shots, which I assume was just rust. But then after that, looked great. Filled right in. The offense had a little bit of a hard time getting into the feel of him with the new look of the Celtics. But otherwise, it didn't like they missed a beat. They lose Vucevic. Perfect timing that you have Jayson Tatum, who can play basically a small 4-man. So now they can run these smaller lineups. He helps on the boards. And all of a sudden, the Celtics are rounding very quickly into the very threatening team that we've talked about them being. I don't know if they're going to end up tearing Tatum back at all, but if this continues, should they be the favorite in the East, or is it still the Pistons?
You know, my take on it. I think the Celtics are the team. But yeah, no, that was a crazy game. Every sharp on the planet was betting every under you could think of on Jayson Tatum because they thought he was going to play like 10, 15 minutes. Comes out and plays 27 minutes, absolutely crushes all of his overs. So that was just insane. Coming off of the Achilles tear, no minute restriction. Unbelievable. But yeah, no, I think the Celtics are a scary team. They obviously like had that dominating performance against the Mavericks when he came back, and then today, like as we're recording this, they're just handling the Cavs right now. So I think this team could be very scary. Obviously, still know the Pistons are very good, but those are the top 2 teams in my mind. But I think the Celtics are the team to beat right now. They're only 3 games back of the Pistons too, so like it's not like the Pistons are, you know, leagues ahead of them on wins. So
in context of that, Pistons have dropped 3 in a row, but yeah, I mean they're up 25 right now in Cleveland. Just belt to you know what, without Tatum playing, I believe. So yeah, this team like loaded, especially if he's back in the mix. One of the better defensive teams in the NBA. Missoula, obviously a psychopath, and has these guys playing the right way. But I'm just looking at who, yeah. So they probably are going to get first round. You got the Magic, Heat, and Sixers all lumped together, just praying that they don't have to play in the play-in. And then what I think is probably inevitable is the second round matchup with the Celtics and the Knicks. And I don't think I'd be too worried. Although that was an incredible effort by the Knicks last year. Mr. Bing Bong, for anybody who follows Jerry O'Connell, just unbelievable content from that series. We'll see if we can get another miraculous Knicks performance, but we talked about this. I think we're on a collision course for the Pistons and Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals.
It's starting to feel that way. And so the thing to me that actually stood out the most with the Celtics is, I know we talked, do you bring Jayson Tatum back slowly? Do you use him as like a Manu Ginobili sixth man type thing? So obviously they did the opposite. They said Jayson Tatum is back. He's the star. Jaylen Brown, he and Tatum are going to figure it out. I know there were questions of who's the alpha dog. They've done this for long enough together. It's going to be fine. What it actually made me realize is that it put maybe their most important player, who I think is Peyton Pritchard, back into a role where he's most comfortable. And he's more of like that sixth man, can start when he needs to, but is not having to be a primary engine as much when he now has two guys he can defer to, because obviously Derek White's not really a creator, so Peyton Pritchard is being forced to do a lot of that when it wasn't Jaylen Brown. All of a sudden, Jayson Tatum's back. Now Peyton Pritchard is in a much better spot, and that is when the Celtics are at their best, is when they have that second unit that can come in and just play the full math game, just absolutely run the Missoula offense to a T. That's why they, I think, are so scary with Tatum back. And then, obviously, the Vucevic injury is a little concerning, but honestly, he hasn't been as impactful as I think a lot of people were hoping he would be after the trade anyway. So I think that if he comes back healthy, they can find ways to use him when they need size. But this team, again, can play small. And other than against maybe the Knicks, where the Knicks are also comfortable playing small, but then having a guy like McBride or Josh Hart that can crash the glass really hard, it's going to be a favorable landscape for most of the Eastern Conference till they have to play the Pistons. Like, that's the only other team that size-wise you would maybe think gives them issues. So I think it's going to set up very nicely for them. The one team hanging around, obviously, is our beloved Hornets, but I think that there's probably going to be a chance that the Hornets are on the other side of the bracket of them. So, you don't have to worry about Con Knipple coming in and torching you or anything in Boston. But I think the path is setting itself up very nicely for the Celtics. And if Jayson Tatum remains healthy, doesn't have any setbacks in this recovery, I probably am going to take a little bit off of my anticipation for my love for the Pistons, because after I've seen this, it's the Celtics look like the Celtics again. So the final topic on the NBA, again, talking to East now, the play-in situation in the East is an absolute cluster. There's these perennial play-in teams like the Heat and the Bulls, and the Magic are flirting with it. And now you got the Hornets have worked their way in, and we were really high on the Hornets, and we thought, hey, the Hornets can maybe make a push for the 7. Now they're back to the 10, right? And I know, Jake, you have some thoughts on that. But this whole Eastern Conference play-in is an absolute cluster.
Yeah, the Hornets are still a really good team, but they have dropped a few games recently to other play-in teams. Like you said, it's just been a cluster. There's like three teams that are all, or three. There's like 6 teams that are all separated by 3 games in that like 6 to 10 range. And so I still think the Hornets are a good team and they have a chance, but they really got to win those key matchup games. They lost to the Heat, which is one of the teams they're competing against in the play-in area. So they really got to just win the key matchups against like the 76ers, the Hawks, stuff like that. I still think they are a very good team, but they are a very like live and die by just shooting a bunch. And if they're just having an off night, which happens, they'll just get stomped. But then you can also have the game 3 games ago where they absolutely stomped the Celtics. So they're just one of those teams that they can beat anybody, but they can also lose to anybody. And they've just lost a few games recently to be on that edge of the bubble.
They look like a young team, and young teams have major up and down swings. That's exactly what they look like. I don't think it's necessarily surprising. I will say, and that Heat game is exactly this, that Heat culture crap just works sometimes. That is the most Eric Spoelstra spot you've ever seen. Just is going to find a way to do it with a short-manned roster and basically putting it together with popsicle sticks over there. But somehow that team always finds ways to win when they need to. And I will say, as someone who's backing the Hornets to make the playoffs, I really would like it if they don't have to match up with the Heat in their first play-in game. And it'd be even better if somebody could take care of the Heat before they would ever have to match up with them. That is what scares me with that. I think it's the Hornets and the Heat are the two teams I love the most out of that group. The Magic are the most talented. I think the Magic will probably end up being the 7, meaning they only have to win one game to secure their spot. So I think that could be that could be the team that is obviously technically the best, but again, I feel like they're a little bit ahead of the rest of that group.
The Magic will probably be the team that they probably won't be in the play-in. But like I said, everybody's separated by like 3 games. So right now, the Magic are projected to not be in the play-in.
Yeah, so
I
we'll
guess
see
like
how it
the
all
best
plays out.
thing you could hope for is the Heat. They don't have to play the Heat because the Heat get the 6. But
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's that one game. It's just Spoelstra, man. There's a reason everyone regards him as the best coach in the league and have for a while. One game sample size, and you don't ever see it anywhere else in the NBA where you need to win a single game. But that dude is the guy I would want. If I gotta have a guy coach me one game to win something big in the NBA, every time he figures it out.
Nah, it's got to be JJ Redick for that answer.
JJ Redick. Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about just like teams that play with 2 different styles. Oh my. There's not 2 different styles in the NBA more wide than the Lakers and the Heat, the way they play and the talent they're working with.
Talent deficiency on defense in LA. He can. What do you want him to do? He's coaching based on the roster.
he's got a bunch of traffic cones.
He does.
Exactly.
He does. But somehow Eric Spoelstra would make a traffic cone a good defender. All right, well, that brings the conclusion of our discussion this week. I know it's a little bit of a shorter show. Obviously, again, we're really gearing up for next week, the start of March Madness. Just a public service announcement for those watching. NBA is definitely going to take a full backseat here the next few weeks. We're going to be all March Madness basically throughout the tournament. We'll still put out some clips for the NBA until we really get into the NCAA tournament. But as far as on the show, NBA will wait. March is a crappy month for the NBA anyway, so we'll just let all the dust settle. We'll be back in April to cover the play-in. Until then, it's all March, baby. So we're just going to focus on college basketball from here on out. Before we get out of here, though, we're going to talk about a couple of things we're looking at this week. Again, all the major conference tournaments and a few of the other high major college basketball conference tournaments are being played this week. They'll all get started between Tuesday and Thursday. I think the Ivy doesn't start till Friday. I think that's like the last one. But those are all coming up. So there's not a ton of lines out. Some of the seeding is still yet to be set as we record here on Sunday. So not going to be anything firm, but we're just going to point out a couple of angles we're going to be looking at to play here this week. Drew, what are you looking at this week as far as the conference tournaments go that you know you're going to be looking at to find an angle?
Yeah, you touched on it a little bit. I'm going to be looking to fade Tom Izzo and the Spartans. Matchup dependent, obviously, but if I can get a team like a Nebraska or somebody that can actually shoot the 3 with some success, Michigan State funnels everything to the 3. They give up ridiculous volume and for the most part have defended it really well. I think in conference play somewhere in like the low 30s percentage wise the teams are shooting against them. But yeah, I'm going to be looking to fade Michigan State. This is not where Tom Izzo has thrived in the Big Ten tournament, so I will be looking that direction.
Yeah, and for me, kind of the same energy. Different legendary coach, different conference, but Bill Self is another coach who a lot of times has not really gotten his teams up to play, particularly when he knows he doesn't have a juggernaut. He's never really been shown to care too much about the Big 12 tournament. So I would look to fade Kansas. They have been very up and down the stretch. Obviously had a big win against their absolute little brother, who was terrible this year in Kansas State on Saturday. But otherwise, I would be looking to fade them. We'll see what their second round, or their first, but that second round matchup in the Big 12 ends up being. Definitely going to look to play against Bill Self. And then if they do happen to win and match up with Houston, give me Kelvin Sampson in that matchup every time. That's just how I'm going to be looking in that game no matter what. And then more generally speaking in these conference tournaments, one thing that you're always going to want to do to find value in these numbers are tight, they're neutral courts, so there's not as much variance in the numbers. The one place you can typically find a little bit of value is betting against teams that we consider bubble teams. And there's probably about 20 of them all in that range, right? And so the usual consensual thinking or consensus thinking would be that these teams need to win, bet on them in their conference tournaments. Well, usually what that leads to is the books price it in. You end up with a little bit of a ballooned line, especially given that it's a neutral court setting. And these teams all year prove to you that they're inconsistent, and they are that for a reason, because they just aren't as good as they really should have been. So I like to try and find angles to play on those teams. They're going to be playing against probably weaker opponents in the first round, and then might be, not the right number against a team who's better than them in the second round. So there's going to be spots to play against all these teams. So again, check it out. Look at the bubble watch. Look at those teams, see if you like the matchup. That's how I like to play these conference tournaments as well. Again, there's not any specific ones that I can point out until we have all of the matchups, all the numbers, but that's just my kind of word to the wise on this one, is check and look for times you can find some value against the bubble teams, because really it's not as much of an edge to have the motivation as you might think it is. Jake, anything you're looking at in the NBA this week other than we're just going to keep looking for Con Kneppel?
Yeah, pretty much. Until they adjust the line. Keep hitting. But no, NBA, like as Cole said, it's really just a day-to-day looking, but NBA in March is a little it's a little tough. There's a lot of tanking teams, a lot of teams that don't really care, and then there's just a lot of weirdness going on. So it's mainly going to be a slowdown. I'll put out a few clips this week, but then once the tournament starts in college basketball, the NBA will slow down until we get to the play-in.
All right, well, there you have it. That's what we're looking at this week. That'll kind of wrap up the show for us. Again, a little bit shorter. March is here. It's in full force. We're going to have a big show next week. We're cooking up some fun stuff for the show next week. Jake will be bringing some hard-hitting analysis on how to play underdogs. Drew and I are going to cook up a little bit of a competition to see who really can be the master of March for the podcast here. So we're going to have some fun stuff next week. We're going to have some best bets going into the week one of the tournament, and we're going to break down the bracket, the seeding, all of that stuff next week. So it's going to be a huge draw. One thing that we wanted to touch on, we can keep it really quick here before we go, is, as we said, it is football season. Max Crosby has been traded to the Ravens. Let's go around real quick. 30 seconds. What's your take on this? Drew, you go first. How are you feeling about this trade?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to see the silver lining where both teams win here. Obviously, Ravens are in win now mode. You love to think what Minter is going to be able to do with Crosby, so I totally get it from their perspective. If you're the Raiders, I think you did a great job maximizing what you could get out of Max Crosby. 2 firsts is great, but the first one this year is the 14th overall pick in a edge-heavy class. Might be some short-arm dudes in that class, but should be an opportunity to get an air replacement, you would hope, for Max Crosby. So I like it on both sides.
It's definitely a scary situation for the Steelers. As a team that has already been struggling with everything that's going on in the offseason, this is not a good look for us. The Ravens are a scary team. We talked about it yesterday, but they are probably the favorite now to win the AFC. Either them or maybe the Bills. They're a very scary team. Their defense got a lot better, which is one of the things that's holding them back. And obviously they still have Lamar. But I think the true, the one team that is truly terrified, or I guess one person, is Joe Burrow. He has to go 6 games against Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, and TJ Watt. That's a tough 6 games. With his offensive line, that's going to be a tough one. So I'm sure he is the one shaking in his boots the most.
Let you decide who he's the least afraid of between those 3 players.
Yeah, I know. DJ Watt's a little long in the tooth these days.
Yeah, hey, nonetheless, I think you're right. It's a very scary division to have to be an offensive lineman in. That is for sure. What I do know is that the Ravens have gone all in. And if you're John Harbaugh, you have to be a little disgusted that they waited to go all in until they got rid of you. You have to be a little upset. But the Ravens are all in. They went and got the young defensive mind. They're giving him every weapon possible to build this defense with. You have Lamar Jackson. It's probably the last year or two. Now, again, he's been an ageless wonder. But Derrick Henry, how much more are you going to get out of him? They do still need to address a couple of the issues like Drew spoke on. But this is an all-in move. This is the most all-in move you can make if you're the Ravens. So it's now or never. You've been disappointing the last few years. You claim maybe it was the Harbaugh relationship. So let's see if that's true. That's where I'm at with this. Is like, I'm just willing to wait and see. I don't know how it's going to work out or not, but Max Crosby is a damn good player, And I think that you have to say they got better. So we'll see how it plays out. We'll see how they draft. But I think it's an all-in move, and I do think it's fun when teams truly do go all in, and you just get to see everything they've got. I think that's super fun. So we'll see how it plays out. That's our take on football. Again, it's basketball season. We're not going to belabor the point too much. We'll talk about a lot more of that stuff when we get to the offseason, especially after the draft, so we can see how these teams are all built up. But that's it. Like I said, National Nightmare's over. We got to talk about football yet again. All right, that'll bring us to the official end of the show then. As always, we want to thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, please drop a like on the video, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell as well so you get notified whenever we upload again. Big month coming up at the tournament, then the NBA playoffs after that. So you're going to want to stay tuned to everything we've got going on. Check us out on social media as well. That's where we're putting out a lot of our daily picks as far as clips go, both NBA and college basketball. So definitely stay tuned there as well. Other than that, we wish you guys luck, as always, on all of your wagers this week. It's a huge week, especially with the conference tournament coming up, so maybe even a little extra luck for everybody. And we'll see you next week.
Let's have a week.
Let go.